Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and you know what happens to me sometimes? I start getting a screaming feeling in my gut, and my gut is screaming at me right now that the regulators in the United States and around the world are about to get off the pot, and they are about to start making things happen. I am seeing left and right now. We showed from this morning. We were showing the guy from the comptroller of the currency and listening to him talk. And I'm about to show you the guy that runs the CFTC, listening to him talk. We got Stuart Alderoty. I've got some clips from Stuart Alderoty from Ripple, who's their general counsel. I'm hearing him talk. I'm getting a feeling here, folks, and you should be too. All right. And also, like this guy right here, this Benoit Curie, Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub. This guy that's basically the central bank of central banks. They all report to the BIS. Well, he's been tweeting about cross-border payment systems for the last 2 or 3 days, and I'm starting to see a pattern. I'm not going to go into this article, but you can see it here. Cross-border payment systems have been neglected for too long. Improving cost, speed, reliability would remove frictions for small business. Who's been talking about that for the last 3 or 4 years, folks? That would be Ripple. That would be Ripple. And they've been meeting with guys like this guy for the last 3 years, too. X-Men XRP sent me this. PayPal confirms cryptocurrency integration effort in letter to the EU. So they sent a letter to the EU. It says they're confirming that they're bringing cryptocurrency capabilities to its platform in this letter to the European Union. They call for regulations and framework related to cryptocurrencies so as to protect its users and investors. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. Now, you're also seeing this type of stuff, and this leads me to believe that Fidelity Digital Assets is about ready to roll too. We are delighted to provide Kingdom Trust our institutional-grade infrastructure to custody Bitcoin held in Choice. This is Choice by Kingdom Trust, individual retirement accounts. So what you're seeing here right before your eyes, folks, you're seeing the custody issue being resolved, and you're seeing the regulatory issues about to be resolved. Folks, you can't make any of this up. It's all happening right before our eyes now. Now, here's what I want to tell you about this. Now, this guy right here is, he's the CEO of Kingdom Trust, and he tweeted out that same news piece. The U.S. retirement market is the largest untapped addressable market for Bitcoin, but not just for Bitcoin, folks. It's XRP too. I've been telling you this for months. It's incredible to have the opportunity to work with Digital Assets institutional platform, Fidelity Digital Assets, and team. This is good for Bitcoin savers and the U.S. retirement market. Folks, that is why I've been screaming from the rooftops about iTrust Capital, because iTrust Capital is doing this before any of these guys are. iTrust Capital is, you can invest in, I opened a Roth IRA, but you can roll your 401k and several other types of retirement plans, roll it into an iTrust Capital IRA. It's in the description of all my videos. There's a coupon code where you can get a month free. And they just created this awesome video because now they also have gold on the blockchain. They've got gold that you can get on the blockchain, that's on the blockchain in their IRA. So you can go from XRP to gold, or you can sell and then put it in gold, or you can go into Bitcoin. They've got Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and probably a couple others I don't remember. Watch their commercial. This is what it's all about. And remember, this is in the description of all of my videos where you can get 1 month free.
Every year, billions of dollars go into cryptocurrency and physical gold IRAs. IRAs are one of the best ways to build wealth because of their tax advantages. The problem is that many companies offering cryptocurrency IRAs have transaction fees of up to 15%. Even worse, many physical gold IRA companies have spreads of 30% or more, starting your investment off in a deep hole. There are also companies pushing checkbook LLC IRAs, which are complicated to set up, legally questionable, and leaves clients with all the risk. So where can you find an easy-to-use, affordable company with 24/7 trading access of digital assets in your IRA? Introducing iTrust Capital. iTrust Capital provides the simplest, most transparent, and liquid way to invest in cryptocurrency and physical gold and silver in your IRA. With just a 1% transaction fee, you can begin trading hassle-free 24 hours a day. Assets are custodied with SunWest Trust, which has been in business for decades and has over 11,000 clients. Cryptocurrencies are safely stored with our institutional custody wallet partners, while physical gold and silver is deposited in the highly secured vaults at the Royal Canadian Mint, and ownership is ledgered on a blockchain. So if you don't like paying taxes every time you trade, like paying the lowest fees and having 24-hour liquidity of your investments in your IRA, then iTrust Capital just may be the right fit for you. Visit us today at itrustcapital.com to learn more, or call us at 866-30-TRUST, 866-308-7878.
I thought that was a great video they put together there. Okay. Now, I wanted to mention to you, Binance US just replied to James Malpass and said, we are working on Georgia. So Binance is working on getting access for people that live in Georgia in the United States, where I live, so that you can get in, open a Binance US account. All right. Now, Ripple tweeted this out today. Is the U.S. falling behind in terms of blockchain and digital asset regulation? Ripple's Stuart Alderoty talks about this and more on the latest BlockStars podcast. This is with David Schwartz, and Stuart Alderoty actually tweeted about it as well. The one where David Schwartz and I discuss why a 1940s Florida orange grove is holding back digital asset innovation in the U.S. and how to move forward. Link below to listen. David Schwartz replied to him, we have surprisingly long section about whether beavers are securities. Okay, so here is this is the podcast, and I wanted to play. I've got a couple of clips here from it, starting this one. If I can get it to play.
And I think if the U.S. had taken a much narrower view in the mid-1990s, I think what would have happened is either we would have stunted the growth of the internet, or those innovators would have moved offshore, which I think is what's happening a bit with our industry right now. I mean, we've seen, just on that point, for folks who keep track of this stuff, they'll tell you that blockchain investments in the U.S. have recently declined by as much as 20%. And look, there's a real danger here, and I don't want to sound alarmist, but this is, I think, more rooted in fact. There's a real danger here of the U.S. getting the reputation that this technology is not welcome in the U.S., and there's a huge consequence to that. You're going to disadvantage U.S. companies, and so they can't fairly compete globally. So we're not asking for no regulation. We're asking for a level playing field. And
level playing
I think,
field.
Look, if you just look to China, what's happened in China with 5G, I think we lost the 5G race. And there's a real danger here if we lose this race to another country like China, putting aside just the competition issue, right? But there's a real, I think, national economic or national security issue. So China's already created a new...
Did you hear that? It's a national security issue, almost like the U.S. could call Bitcoin a national security threat.
Domestic oligopoly for digital payments, operated through companies like Alipay and WeChat. They're also working on their own centralized sovereign digital currency, the digital yuan. And the Chinese government is subsidizing the vast amounts of energy needed to fuel the cryptocurrency miners in China. At least 65% of the cryptocurrency mining for Bitcoin and Ether is concentrated in China. That's subsidized by the Chinese government, and that translates into billions of dollars of mining rewards going to these Chinese mining pools. And what's really troubling on this point, David, it's that the two cryptocurrencies, the only two cryptocurrencies that the U.S. regulators have seen fit to declare are not subject to the very heavy-handed and Byzantine securities laws in the U.S. are the Chinese-controlled Bitcoin and the Chinese-controlled Ether. And David, the other thing, and I really haven't gotten into it, and we could do probably a whole nother 20 minutes on it, is the impact on the environment of these mining pools, these Bitcoin and Ether mining pools. Not only are they subsidized, but the carbon footprint of these mining pools is enormous. I've read statistics that 78 terawatts of energy is used to operate these mining pools. I'm not sure how big a terawatt is, but it seems like really, really big. I've heard it's like the equivalent of the energy consumption of, relatively substantial countries like Finland, and that's just for Bitcoin mining alone. So not only is there sort of a national economic issue to it if these mining pools are being subsidized by energy in China, and we've got $1 billion of mining rewards going to Chinese-controlled mining pools, but there's an environmental and sustainability aspect to this that I'm not sure if people have really spent that much time or enough time thinking about. So we've got there's a real issue here, right? You can lose out on just competition generally if you can't foster innovation around blockchain and crypto in the U.S. You're just going to move offshore. But then there's sort of a national interest issue where if you lose that race to China, I think
there's that word, national interest, national. I'm telling you, don't be surprised if this Bitcoin and Ethereum national security issue doesn't become a dialogue that you hear more and more of. Okay, that is interesting. Okay, I'm going to go now to 30. Let me see if it's hard for me to find on these things. 31, let's see, 3145 or so. Let me go back just a hair. All right.
That I think is inevitable, right? I mean, even in the year and a half that I have been in this space, and you've been in it much longer than I have, David, there's a real sense of inevitability to this. It's not a question of if it's going to happen. It is happening. And we see a lot of evidence of that. I mean, in February of this year, the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors, they issued a statement urging countries to implement a cryptocurrency standard. We see the Financial Action Task Force, which is the global money laundering watchdog. They issued guidance setting out best practices to address money laundering concerns for blockchain and crypto. And guess what? The industry is stepping up and saying, thank you for the guidance. Thank you for letting us know what is required. We're going to now satisfy that standard. And then I go back, coming from traditional finance, you look in 2017, when I was sitting at my desk at a bank in New York, we had Jamie Dimon calling Bitcoin a fraud. And in June of 2020, we have JP Morgan issuing a research report that says that the longevity of crypto as an asset class was really proven out by crypto's ability to withstand the madness that we all witnessed in March. So the bottom line is the days of Silk Road are behind us. The Wild West days of crypto, I think, are behind us. We've got real responsible actors that are leaning in, and that means, when I say responsible actors, I mean global standard-setting bodies, central banks, large financial institutions. So the question is, how big or will this technology get, and where will this innovation take us? So it really does feel like the internet of the mid-1990s. And I think the good news is with a lot of these responsible actors who want to cooperate with regulators and all regulators, including U.S. regulators, I think, we should be able to get to a smart regulatory framework. I just hope that the U.S. doesn't get left behind and surrender the opportunity to someone else.
This is happening, folks, and I think you're starting to see this happen. Now, I'm now going to take you, this is a dialogue that was going on with Heath Tarbert. This guy's interviewing Heath Tarbert. And Heath Tarbert, I believe he's the chairman of the CFTC. he took the spot that was Chris Giancarlo's, who happens to now be running the Digital Dollar Project and also working for a law firm that works for Ripple. And his Digital Dollar Project is backed by Accenture, which is an investor in Ripple. Do you see how this merry-go-round goes around? Nothing is a coincidence, folks. All right, now listen to Heath Tarbert. There's a couple of interesting clips from him.
Trying to get started. To that point, we've observed a number of foreign jurisdictions and central banks experimenting or exploring central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, particularly the People's Bank of China. One of your prior roles was obviously with the U.S. Treasury, working in international markets, and you have a lot of experience in coordinating with the Federal Reserve Bank on many different initiatives. What do you see as the federal government's role in developing a CBDC for the dollar? And what hurdles or issues are a primary concern to you towards achieving that type of goal?
Sure. So obviously this is in the province of the Fed, and we'll rely on their expertise in determining how and if and whether they would like to have a digital version of the dollar. My own personal views on this, based on my experience at Treasury, is a couple of things. Number one, the dollar has been the reserve currency of the world now for 50 plus years. And it's really critical, I think, to the U.S. economy that it maintain its status, either as the reserve currency or certainly one of the reserve currencies that people depend upon.
One of the reserve currencies.
If it makes sense in order to keep that status, to digitalize the dollar, then I think it's certainly worth looking into. I think in terms of some of the hurdles, there would be the question of anti-money laundering and AML. That has been something that has been a part of sort of the dollar clearing conversation. And how do we have the dollar as the world's reserve currency, but at the same time ensure that our anti-money laundering laws and the dollars aren't being used for nefarious purposes? And so that same rubric, I think, would need to be applied to any kind of digital version of the dollar. But I will tell you that if the U.S. government does decide to do a digital version of the dollar, I would think it would be very popular, and I could see the United States leading. And so it's definitely, in my view, a dialogue and conversation worth happening, particularly as we see other central banks experimenting and thinking through the same issue.
So he thinks that he could see it as one of the world reserve currencies. See where this is going? Okay, 2430. China's going to get a seat at the table on this. That's my prediction. China gets a seat at the table. But that doesn't mean that the United States can't have the world reserve digital currency, does it? 2430. Listen to this.
It was less than a year. At this point, I don't see anything necessarily on the horizon, but I think it's inevitable that in the future, once major classes of digital assets receive the clarity on whether they're a security, whether they're a commodity, you'll start to see them also be listed, particularly as they get more and more popular and people do see them as a store of value.
Well, as you know, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on this directly, a lot of people in the space have been frustrated somewhat with the SEC for their slowness in determining, what's a security or not. Do you envision the SEC getting a bit more comfortable with regard to making those determinations in a timely period?
I think the SEC is working hard to make those determinations, and of course the technology is changing rapidly. I do have a lot of sympathy for my colleagues at the SEC who are confronted with this threshold question, because I think they do understand the dangers of getting it wrong. If something is determined to be not a security when in fact it is a security, they are really concerned about investors getting burned. So I certainly don't envy the position they're in, but I also understand at the same time the blockchain community seeking and wanting certainty. So what I can promise you is whenever the SEC decides whether something is a security or not, particularly if it's not a security, we will move in short order at the CFTC to provide the clarity that it is in fact a commodity and therefore subject to our jurisdiction. And we'll endeavor to provide with as much rapidity as reasonably possible answers and clarity so people can go on innovating and complying with our laws.
Or maybe it'll be a currency. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe. Hit the like button. Tell your friends and family. XRP could be a currency, and it could be one of the world reserve currencies or world reserve digital currencies, as Miguel Vaez said. Thanks for listening.